want to thank you so much for being on the podcast, for giving us your time and your wisdom. And I want to kind of just get into it. For people who don't know you or who you are, I want to ask you, what do you do and why do you do it?
What do I do and why do I do it? Well, it sounds like a simple question, but
Hmm.
that's actually a very, very complex question because I feel like I'm involved in so many different things. I spent most of my career in the healthcare space, being a big pharma CEO, and then transitioned from being a big pharma CEO while I was president at Allergan Medical and then CEO of Bausch and Lomb Surgical. And then about 12 years ago, I started my own group of companies and became an entrepreneur. I'd actually started my career as an entrepreneur and then went to work for larger companies because I wanted to see what it was like to run larger organizations, and I wanted that experience. And then I decided to be an entrepreneur again in my early 40s. And I started this group of companies, which is now called Crown Holdings. We founded 11 companies in our portfolio, and we've taken several now public to the public markets. It's been a very, very fun career. And I am, I guess, positioning now my career going forward more as an inventor, more as the work that I do in discovery and mathematics and geometry. I'm an author of several books. I've published now 6 books. I'm going to be publishing my 7th and 8th pretty soon. I have a television show on my work in mathematics and geometry, and in particular related to Egyptology. It's called Code X on the Gaia streaming network. I'm just about to film my 2nd season in another week or so, which I'm super excited about.
That's awesome.
I do adventure travel, and I take people around the world to sacred and ancient sites and help decode and demystify them using what we really have as left of those civilizations in many ways, and that's really the architecture and the mathematical proportion that was used to give us clues on what those people in that time would like to say to us today.
Hmm.
So I've had this very interesting career and life, and I'm a very happy person, and but also one that has experienced life to its fullest. I've been to over 140 countries. I've learned 8 languages in my lifetime. And I believe I can learn something from every single person I meet, regardless of age, race, creed, color, you name it, doesn't matter. I can learn something from every single person. And I believe that the greatest reason for all of us to be here is to remember and decode who we are
Hmm.
and why we're here.
Yeah.
And that the reason for being here is ultimately to learn how to transcend beyond judgment of things and thinking, right? And making assessments of, and actually turn all of that through alchemy into the gold of love.
Hmm.
Understanding that love is the reason why we're here, that enlightenment truly is when your expression of love supersedes your desire for one objective truth.
Hmm. Yeah. There's so much to unpack there, but I kind of want to start off with enlightenment. What what is, and I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what is enlightenment? What does it mean to be enlightened? And like, would you classify yourself as enlightened?
I think I have moments where I feel like I'm in this zone of samadhi through meditation where I forget that the world is separate from me.
Mm.
And I realize that everything around me is my U inverse and it's very much connected to me. The
Hmm.
world is not outside of me,
Hmm.
it's just an expression of me.
Yeah.
And when I started to realize that the things that I was attracting were simply because they were the same things I was judging,
Hmm.
I started seeing the patterns that my judgments of things, particularly negative judgments, would result in me experiencing those same things.
Wow.
So I started thinking, well, I guess everything I judge, I'm attracting. And maybe if I stop judging it, I'll stop attracting some of those things that are
Hmm.
less pleasant.
Yeah.
We don't perceive the world as it is, we perceive the world as we are.
Hmm.
And we
Yeah.
can't separate our own conditioning biases from our experiences, they're inextricably linked.
Hmm.
So this is I'd say you asked the question of what is enlightenment. I believe it's when your expression of love supersedes your desire for one objective truth. And I think we see this in relationships very often. There's a point when you're in a relationship where you have to give up being right in order to sustain and have the relationship thrive and succeed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like at some point you have to say to your spouse or your, close friend or whomever it is, I don't want to get stuck on, I don't need to be right here. And I understand that you see things maybe differently than I do. And it's going a step beyond agreeing to disagree. It's getting to the point of, you know what, whether we agree or not, is not even really that important to me because I love you.
Mm. Yeah.
And so let's go back to our relationship, which is, intended to be something that lifts us and brings us joy and fulfillment and learning. I think sometimes life throws at us difficult circumstances. And what we have to do is ask ourselves, not why did someone do this to me? People that complain about trauma or that talk about this so-and-so happened to me or that happened to me or this person did this to me, they're not really on an awakened path. They might be woke, but they're not awakened. Because once you're truly awakened, you realize that you did it all to yourself. You chose it all. The larger question is, why did you choose the experience that you experienced? What happens to us isn't really what happens to us. It's how we perceive what happened to us.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, talking about like you just saying like pretty much like are you saying we create what is going to happen? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
Wow.
I believe that every single thought, every single experience, every single moment that we experience is predetermined. What we call destiny is really just the free will of the higher self. The higher self could be considered the one consciousness. The one consciousness wants to gain wisdom because that's the greatest benefit, gaining information and wisdom. And the best way to gain wisdom is through expanding your consciousness and your awareness. And as you expand your conscious and awareness, you have more and more experiences. And those experiences can only be fully appreciated when you look at them through multiple eyes of perspective. So then the one decides to recognize that there is no such thing as one objective truth, because there are multiple ways of looking at the same truth, right? You have 30 people that are witness to a crime, and you have 30 different perspectives on what occurred. Because people don't see the world as it is. They see it as they are. So they notice different things. So the one, in order to expand its empathy and its knowledge and wisdom, separates itself into the many eyes of perspective so that each and every one of us with our own unique conditioning biases can perceive the universe around us, which then adds more value to the one in its desire to expand its wisdom through empathy. And the only thing that's real in this illusion of the one dividing itself into the many is the feeling that you feel. And that informs space-time. So you could have many different people experience the same thing and have entirely different feelings. One person might be entirely offended. It's like, I'll give you an example. I grew up in a time where men would open doors for women. And that would be a nice, polite thing to do. But there are certain places that if you open a door for a woman, she might be offended. It's true.
Yeah.
It's like, why are you patronizing me? So, I mean, in both cases, whose fault is it for the offense? It's your fault. If you're offended, it's your problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that there's never been a case where someone didn't do something totally offensive, because there are. But, right now it's become kind of in vogue to talk about, especially, you have these two different types of personality types, which is covert narcissism and overt narcissism. And covert narcissism can also be described as the empath.
Hmm.
The empath who complains about her narcissistic boyfriend, which now has invariably been tied to the boyfriend because they've somehow been taught that narcissists are only men. No, I know plenty of female narcissists. And narcissism, there's nothing wrong with it. And it's even become a term. People say, oh, my narc this, my narc that. It's like, okay, this is victim consciousness. The very first sign of true narcissism is when people believe they're perennially a victim.
Hmm.
The second sign of true narcissism is when they have no history or track record of ever having apologized for anything, because they never got to the stage of recognizing the relationship's importance is higher and greater
Hmm.
than being right.
Yeah. I think in a world like our world, we're so divided, and it's this side and that side, and you disagree with me and you disagree with me on this thing and that thing, and it divides us. We have this great divide between this side and this side, and then there are some people like me and you, and we are in the middle, and we're like, what the heck is going on? Why are you fighting? Why are we divided? We're all one. We all came from the one. We're the one divided the many, just to experience, just for the sake of experiencing each other. And why are you doing this? What can we do to heal that divide? And for the people who are on the sides, what do you think that they can do as a person to say, oh, you're right, I'm on a side, I shouldn't be on a side, I love everyone? What do you think that they should do as well?
I think, first of all, whenever you're feeling that separation, what I like to do is start to do a little bit of a self-diagnostic. What is causing me to feel this degree of separation? Why do I feel like I'm being judged? Now, usually people would say, I feel like when I feel uncomfortable going into a room with a bunch of people that I feel very separate from, usually I would say, yeah, I feel like I'm being judged a little bit. And nobody likes that feeling,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then if you ask the other people in the room, the moment that they notice you feeling uncomfortable, they may start thinking that you're judging them,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then it creates this cascade of events of mirror neuron interactions where each side is mirroring each other's separation.
Mm-hmm.
What I like to do in that circumstance is just to stop myself and raise my vibration. How do I raise my vibration? Gratitude. Count your blessings.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember, man, on the flight over on this trip, I was looking out the window and I was just awestruck at the majesty. And first of all, how lucky am I that I get to see the world like this? How lucky am I that I've gotten the opportunity to go everywhere? How
Mm-hmm.
blessed am I that I have the food that I need to survive? And how blessed am I to have the clothes on my back? And, there are people in the world who do not have a fraction of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel so abundant. And then when I start thinking about that even more, my abundance then expands into this deep gratitude for my life experience. And I start even thinking about how every single negative experience turned into a positive experience in my life, because even the most difficult of circumstances taught me valuable lessons. The lead was turned into gold. Then I
Mm-hmm.
start thinking about every single person around me is a reflection of me and what's inside of me. And when I walk up to them, I have something to learn from them because they are a representation of literally the divine with me that has come to commune with me,
Mm-hmm.
to teach me something from my higher self that I was not knowing before. And what a great blessing and opportunity is to be humble
Mm-hmm.
and to take that teaching and to listen to it. And as I drive home that night, notice the synchronicity on the license plate in the car in front of me, giving me my exact number, 888. This way of looking at the world will change your world. It opens your world to miracles. And then you realize that no one around you is separate from you. And you cannot help but magnetize every person in your orbit. Go to source and expect goodwill.
Yeah.
When you're feeling that you are separate and disenfranchised from a group or a crowd, start flipping that energy into be magnanimous. Do the thing that you would hope someone would do to you. There was a beautiful passage that I was just reading a couple of days ago that I think is really powerful, and I'll see if I can find it here. And I think this actually represents what I would say is truly, um, kind of this notion of Christ consciousness.
Hmm.
And Christ consciousness to me is when you're able to see and again make that choice that you're going to transcend above and beyond, right? This notion of what we call, separation, as well as this other stuff. And interesting, this is actually written in the King James version of the Bible, and I don't usually go through talking about stuff that's in the Bible per se, but this one I think is kind of different. Okay, so this is in Luke 27. But I say unto you which hear, love your enemies, do good to them that hate you, bless them that curse you, and pray for them which despitefully use you. And unto him that smiteth thee on one cheek offer also the other. And him that taketh away thy cloak forbid not to take thy cloak also. Give to every man that asketh of thee, and of him that taketh away thy goods ask them not again. And as ye would that men should do to you, do you also to them likewise. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
But love ye your enemies, and do good, and lend, hoping for nothing again. And your reward shall be great, and ye shall be the children of the highest. For he is kind unto the unthankful and to the evil. Be ye therefore merciful, as your Father also is merciful. Judge not, and ye shall not be judged. Condemn not, and ye shall not be condemned. Forgive, and ye shall be forgiven. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, and shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom. For with the same measure that ye mete, withal it shall be measured unto you.
Yeah, I mean, this is literally talking about as above, so below, as below, so above. It's reciprocal. And like to say that on either side, to say that like the Bible, whatever, is wrong or something along those lines, or to say that like that the truth is not as like the as above so below, like where's that come from? It's not true. It's not in the Bible. It's not true. And both sides seeing that, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's true. It matters if it works. And it is true. It's proven to be true. As above, so below. Yeah.
As above, so below, absolutely hermetic wisdom, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Christ consciousness as a construct is part of hermeticism.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
it's
once,
moving into the fifth dimensional experience, and the fifth dimensional experience is, if you were to summarize, the whole third and fourth dimensional experience, the third dimensional experience is this plane of duality. The fourth dimensional experience is starting to learn and start to see the patterns of that duality,
mm-hmm,
and start to realize time maybe a little bit differently.
mm-hmm,
And then the fifth dimensional experience is when you recognize that love transcends time,
mm,
that love transcends judgment.
yeah.
And when you recognize that there is no good and evil per se, there is evil in the world. Yes, I'm not going to take that away, because there's evil inside each of us.
Mm-hmm,
It's the Batman film, right? Hope that you live long enough to defeat the villain, but not so long you become the villain.
mm-hmm,
And this is the challenge we face in the world, that people think that I'm going to get all the darkness out of me. And the more that I repress that darkness out of me, I am not that. Then I can push it all into the outside world.
mm-hmm,
And in so doing, all the darkness shows up around me
mm-hmm,
because I pushed it all out of me.
yeah.
So my job now is to defeat the villain.
Yeah.
But I don't know of any villain that ever was that didn't believe himself the hero.
Wow. Yeah.
So I don't worry about people having darkness, because no one of us is any better than anyone else. All of us have an equal amount of dark and an equal amount of light. It's just that when we press it out of us and repress it to the max, we have been put into an extreme position of denial of our darkness.
Mm-hmm.
It's still there, and it has to show up back to us
Mm-hmm.
because everything must remain in balance. Every action must have an equal opposite reaction.
Mm-hmm.
This is why people judge everything that they are. And they're the only ones that they cannot see it. The people that complain about how egotistical people are the most egotistical people.
Mm-hmm.
It takes ego to perceive ego. We don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are.
Mm-hmm.
The humble man perceives humility in all.
Yeah. It's like levels. We're in a game. We have these levels. Like we have the same weapon that's being used against us. And as soon as we can understand, wait, I shouldn't even be using the weapon, you go past the next level. You say, oh, I'm judging people. I'm judging people on this certain, whatever, political topic, right? I'm judging
Mm-hmm.
them because you're this and I'm that. But wait, we both have the same sword. And why are we even fighting? I love you. You set your sword down. You get to the next level. And I I feel like as I let go of my judgment on certain topics, I get these weird like just like on the outside rim of weird things that I'm judging still, and I'm like, why am I like why are there not these big topics that I'm judging? Why do I have like this random like thing that I shouldn't even be judging? And I understand that like you level up and the things get easier, not easier and easier, but smaller and smaller as you transcend this judgment and you say, I'm not gonna judge, I'm just love. I'm just gonna love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Totally right. So, no, it's a beautiful world if we choose to see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a terrifying and horrible world if we choose to see it that way too.
Yeah. How you've talked about so many things. You've talked about you talked about the one separating itself in the many. When you refer to the
Mm-hmm.
one, are you talking about God? Are you talking about the universe? Are you talking about this like divine power? What do you mean when you say that?
When I reference the one, I look at more from a geometric perspective.
Hmm.
Okay, so if I were to show you something, I'm not sure I can share my screen. Can I share my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to show you something that's going to blow your mind. So if I asked you a question, what is zero? How much is 0 to the power of 0?
It's zero.
So, yeah, tell me this. 0 to the power of 0 equals what? So 0 to the power of 0
Mm-hmm.
equals 0, you think?
Isn't it one?
Hmm.
I'm bad at math.
0 to the power of 0 equals 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that just because somebody determined it as 1?
I'm not sure.
Um, because anything taken to the power of 0, paradoxically, is 1.
Yes.
Okay. But that's kind of a weak answer because it's like saying nothing to the power of nothing equals something.
Something. Yeah.
And maybe that something, if you infinitely could break it up, could actually be everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So just think about this for a second. So if I take 0.5 to the power of 0.5, so this one now,
Mm-hmm.
0.5 to the power of 0.5,
Mm-hmm.
the answer is 0.707.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if I take 0.05 to the power of 0.05, do you know what that is? Comes out to 0.05 to the power of 0.0, whoops, 0.05 to the power of 0.05 equals 0.861. So first thing you notice is that this is zero point 0.5 to the power of zero point 0.5. It gives you 0.707. Then
Mm-hmm.
something smaller, 0.05 to the power of 0.05 equals 0.861, which is bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I keep doing this, let's put 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then put 5 to the power of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's just like doing it like this,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then that comes out to 0.9999.
Hmm. The number's getting bigger, even though you're making the number smaller.
Right. And as this gets smaller and smaller, I could
Mm-hmm.
put 1,000 zeros here and 1,000 zeros there,
Mm-hmm.
and
Number
it
would
will
be
just
bigger.
converge to 1.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you really understand that it's not just this thing where any number taken to the power of 0 equals 1.
Mm-hmm.
There's something more to this.
Mm-hmm.
You follow?
Yes.
So it means that out of the void of nothingness, nothingness squared itself,
Mm-hmm.
it was taken to its own power, and the one emerges.
Yeah.
And starting from the one, the entire universe, the conscious universe, now is one whole that then can be separated infinitely into each one of us. We are all simply divisions of the number one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's metaphorical, that's allegorical, that is metaphysically, that is materially.
Mm-hmm.
We are all divisions of the number one.
Yeah.
The number one is universal source consciousness
Mm-hmm.
that comes from the void of nothing to the power of nothing.
Yeah. Wow. And would it also work on the flip side, how when you understand that, like, when I don't know, I'm envisioning us, if we think we're a 10 or we think we're 100 or whatever, and we understand that we're not actually 100, we're all just zeros in this one. It like when we bring ourselves down from 100 to 0, can we like transform into the, we understand that we're the one. Do you know what I mean? Like in lessening our view of ourselves down, we become the one. Do you know what I mean?
You know what's beautiful about this? This is so beautiful and so simple in that a lot of people, when they start to awaken, they almost curse their personas.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to realize that their persona is such an important aspect of who they are, and that is the purpose you are here.
Mm-hmm.
What if the main purpose you were existing in your own conditioning biases with your own unique strengths and your own unique flaws was simply so that you could provide the universe with another point of information and empathy based on your background, your specific choosing of
Mm-hmm.
background, the childhood, the level of poverty or wealth, that all of this is part of an intricate algorithm that is intended to provide an entirely unique emotional matrix
Mm-hmm.
of experience.
Yeah.
Now, in that context, you're serving your purpose. Everything you do in that context is serving your divine mission. Your mission is no better than anyone else's. It's just another number that's part of the overall experience.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the challenge, right? This is the challenge, is to see this. So when people go through their awakening process, they often start to self-loathe
Mm.
more.
Yeah.
They want to change their name. I'm one divine now. I'm so-and-so light. I'm changing my name because I don't want anything to do with the past version of me.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, the true path of individuation realizes the value of the individual.
Mm-hmm.
Individuation does not mean dissolution of the individual. It doesn't mean becoming an automaton, that is basically just melded into this larger collective. If that's what the one wanted, that's what the one would do, but that's not what we're doing.
We're all different.
We're all different for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So the true enlightened person is able to realize his or her value
Yeah.
and fall in love with their path.
Mm-hmm.
Earth is not an escape room meant to be escaped. It's a place that's meant to be learned from and transcended
Mm-hmm.
because we fell in love with it.
Yeah.
The only way to escape and transcend it is to fall in love with it just as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think of it in those terms, then that means that each one of us, as a division of the number one, has a number that represents that division.
Hmm.
Let's say my number is 137,
Mm-hmm.
right? My birthday is the 137th day of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So 137 is my number. Well, that means that I am 1 over 137. The 1 was divided by 137,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So think of it like that.
Yeah.
We're all divisions of the number 1. So I'm 1/137th part.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say, for example, that I have a polygon, and that polygon can have a different side value, right? And that side value would be a 1, a value of 1. And so we just take a polygon of 137 sides with 1 unit as its side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Each one of those 1 sides can recreate the entire polygon of 137 sides.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because it's embedded within the polygon that there is already natural reciprocity within it. If I drew a line in geometry and I tried to say, okay, what would this line be if I drew this line here? Let's say I draw a line here, and I want to draw a line without using any measurements that's going to be the reciprocal value of that line. How would I do it? What do you think?
Reciprocal value, wouldn't it go like this?
Well, the reciprocal value would just be 1 over this value. So let's say, and you could say the answer is, well, Robert, that depends on your scale of measurement, because this line could be any length
Yeah.
depending on your scale of measurement. But
Mm-hmm.
let's assume we apply next to it, here's a cheat sheet, and this is the number 1.
Mm-hmm.
That's the length of number 1.
Yep.
Okay. So how long is this line from here to here? Well, you could say, well, there's 1, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mm-hmm.
So it's approximately 4, right?
So draw one that's 4.
Okay. So then what would be 1 over 4, right? Would be 1, that same length, over 4. And 1
Mm-hmm.
over 4 is equal to 0.25.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 1 over 4 is 0.25.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I realized is that there's a way that nature does this naturally. I don't even have to solve it. Because without measurement, it's very difficult to know if I'm exactly making this line the right length.
Mm-hmm.
But you know how I could do it?
How?
Here's how. So I could basically draw a hexagon. And each side of the hexagon is 1.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Now, if I take a line right here, straight down to this side right here, and I assign this value as 4, right? How long should be the reciprocal value of that, right? That would be 1 over 4. And here's how you solve it. You draw another line here across, and this length from here to here is exactly the reciprocal of this overall length, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So basically, if this length is 4 or if this length is 3, this length right here will always be 1 over that as long as this side length here is 1,
Mm-hmm.
without exception. It's
Wow.
built fundamentally into all geometric form, not only in polygons, not only in flat structures, but also in third dimensional polyhedra. And what this is telling us is that from the 1 and only one side, you could recreate the entire structure.
Yeah.
So that means if we have a polygon with 8.3 billion sides,
Mm-hmm.
and you represent one of those sides, because you're the 137th side out of 8.3 billion
Mm-hmm.
sides, you can recreate the entire world. And that's, by the way, that position, because of its degree position where it is, it's entirely unique. There is not another ever Solomon, and there never has been and never will be another Solomon just like you.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you, from only the knowledge of you being unique on that one side of a gigantic polygon with 8.3 billion sides, can literally recreate through projection every other human being that exists on this planet.
That's, I mean, it's mind blowing to even think about that. What do you mean when you say that? That I can recreate, or you can recreate everything that is, just because you are individually you?
Because we're in our own simulation of our own making.
Mm-hmm.
And we are recreating all the other aspects of everything around us
Mm-hmm.
as we go.
So you say we're in a simulation. What do you
Mm-hmm.
mean by that? Like, are we talking the Matrix? What do you mean by that? Because I'm envisioning people hearing, this guy thinks we're in a simulation. What is he talking about? I'm so confused. Um, what do you mean by that, and how do you know that we're in a simulation?
So, I mean, I could go through, first of all, it's a long journey and path to come to that realization in some
Yeah,
ways.
yeah.
But I think people are getting there faster and faster these days. The first is that geometry is just so perfect. How do you explain geometry in an ocean of entropy? If even one pattern exists in an ocean of entropy and supposed randomness, then we could argue that the entire ocean is not random. And it's simply subjected to a pattern that is too large for us to zoom out to see.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been true in every single thing I've ever endeavored upon in mathematics.
Hmm. There's
That
always a
we
pattern. We're
think
just not
that
seeing it.
that's right.
Yeah.
And you could take this back to before mankind understood the concept of pi. That pi, at some point, several thousand years ago, someone said, okay, we have a wheel, but what's the relationship between this line that cuts across the wheel and the length of the wheel itself? And then someone probably said, well, I kind of measured it and it comes out to, 22 over 7 parts, which is 3.14285714. And then later on, people started looking for more exacting measurements. And they realized that that didn't really work. And then sometime around the 17th century, someone threw out a better ratio, which was more accurate, which is 355 over 113.
Mm-hmm.
So now we know it's 3.1415926. And each time that we gain this new knowledge, like the 100th monkey effect, mankind lifts and expands its consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We've pushed the boundary of what we don't know we don't know. So there's what we know, there's what we know we don't know, and there's what we don't know that we don't even know. So this is a boundary condition that we could call ignorance. At least you may not know something, like I'm not a ice skater, but I know that I don't know how to ice skate,
Yeah.
right? So this realm could simply be that which I know is my conscious mind. That which I don't know, right, is the aspects of my subconscious mind. And
Mm-hmm.
that which I don't know that I don't know is that of the unconscious mind.
Yeah.
And so therefore, when you look at it in this construct, then you could say every time mankind pushed out the boundary of his knowledge around pi, he
Mm-hmm.
realized that it was part of a larger pattern.
Yeah.
And he made more and more of that which was previously entropic or random, no longer random. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe the entire universe is patterned. We just haven't perceived it yet.
Mm-hmm.
And as we expand consciousness, that is the process of becoming and finding our own divinity, to start to see God's encrypted pattern that were previously hidden to our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
and God just being the entire universe itself.
Wow. Yeah. I I mean, I think for me that makes sense to me, and I think hopefully the listeners will get that. I mean, every podcast that I've ever listened with you on it, I have to listen to multiple times just to get like there's so much wisdom inside you, and you I don't know, you're just an amazing person to listen to and hear from. I've been wanting to ask you this question for like a really long time now, ever since I first listened to your stuff. In the Matrix, if Neo gets shot, he gets hurt, even though he's in the simulation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's not in real life, but his brain receives the fake bullet, the simulated bullet, as something that can hurt him. My question
Mm-hmm.
for you is if Neo believed that the bullet could not hurt him, would he be invincible? And then what real life application does that have, hypothetically, both for emotional pain and maybe even physical pain?
Okay, so when Carl Jung talks about how the combination of the subconscious and the conscious mind, which the Egyptian mythology refers to as the eye of Ra, which is consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
the eye of Horus, which is the subconscious mind. Those two things come together. And when we understand with our eye of intuition, the eye of time, the eye of time becomes Horus because Horus is the other way, it's the transposition of the word hours, right? Hours instead of Horus.
Mm-hmm.
It actually derived the word horology, which is the study of time. Okay. So the eye of Horus is an expanded awareness of what time is.
Yeah.
That what we think of as time as linear is not really linear at all. It's a Mobius strip that basically bounds back upon itself. Even with our procession of equinox going forward in the zodiac every year on an annual basis, we are fractionally going backwards in the larger cycle of the precession, which means backwards of equinox. That's why we've gone from, normally you would say right after Pisces is going to be Aries. And then after Aries is Taurus. After Taurus, because we're going into May and then June, then you're in Gemini and then Cancer and then Leo. But we just went on the age sense, right, on the tropical system from Pisces to now Aquarius. Aquarius precedes it. That's because we have a precession on the long cycle and a procession on the short.
Hmm.
So this means time is literally going forward and backward at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a Mobius strip or a Klein torus.
Hmm.
So when we finally get this information to combine our intellect of the conscious mind, the rational thought, through left-right brain hemisynchronization, then you can actually tap into a whole different experience of samadhi,
Mm-hmm.
which is that feeling of enlightenment. You're able to choose love over being
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah.
The rational brain gives up, and so you become heart-led in your awareness.
Mm-hmm.
This is the feminine aspect of the self rising within each of us.
Mm-hmm.
So as we get to this new layer, Carl Jung and several other psychologists refer to this as super consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a perfect balance between your left and right brains. When the heart feels and the brain, right? When the heart thinks and the brain feels, the rivers of wisdom flow.
Mm-hmm.
When the heart thinks and the brain feels, which are the opposites of what they normally would do,
Yes.
the river of wisdom flows. I think there's a very powerful statement in that we can become heart-led. We're
Mm-hmm.
both artists as well as rationalist. We are
Mm-hmm.
also natural scientists as well as musician.
Mm-hmm.
And as we find the way to balance our mind's antenna and the pineal gland that is at the center of our brain becomes a more proficient and efficient antenna for the radio waves that could come in, either positive or negative based on your emotional condition.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how you tap into this higher awareness and higher state of consciousness, where your mind is both rational and irrational at the same time. It's like integer and irrational number. Geometry is just the music that we experience with our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And music is the geometry experience with our ears.
Yeah.
And math is the source code that underlies both.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's amazing. Going back to the beginning, you talked about how you go to all these ancient sites and you look into them and you're trying to understand because what the only thing we
Oh,
have is
I
the.
want to answer the rest of your question
Oh,
because
okay.
I forgot.
Yep.
There was the whole aspect of Neo. So
Yep.
what is going on when Neo, takes a bullet and then it no longer damages him?
Hmm.
The supposition of the film, and I don't want people to try this at home, right? So the supposition of the film is that you can, because it's an illusion,
Hmm.
hack the matrix and be able to withstand incredible pain and have become even totally and entirely impervious to the pain.
Hmm.
And you can do that with thought and with your belief system.
Hmm.
That the illusion of the matrix is the summation of all the beliefs that we have. And I often say that the only obstacles in life that are real are the ones that we persistently believe.
Hmm.
So time itself is a persistent illusion, as Einstein said.
Hmm.
It's a persistent illusion of this separation of past, present, and future, when actually there's only time simultaneously,
Yeah.
only the eternal now. So when you think about it from the standpoint of Neo, I tend to think about it how I train myself to take cold showers. Right? I
Yeah.
literally train my mind to perceive cold water as being hot.
Yeah.
And I changed my sensation
Hmm.
for feeling hot water into cold for that moment.
Yeah.
Now, of course, if I touch boiling water, it's not like I think, "Oh, that's freezing cold." I haven't trained myself to do that just yet.
Yeah.
But I have trained myself to perceive cold water as warm water.
Hmm.
Lots of people can do things like this. Wim Hof, right?
Hmm.
He can go and freeze his tail off and be completely fine.
Yeah.
Um, Athletes, it's all about mental training.
Yeah.
Success in life is 99% what's inside and between your two ears,
Hmm.
because it's how you perceive the world. It's the logos that allows you to perceive,
Hmm.
and how much you apply. As soon as if you think that you've got an insurmountable obstacle ahead of you, it will for sure be insurmountable. If you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right.
Yeah.
Another example is one of my favorite movies from Star Wars, which is when Yoda pulls the X fighter on Empire Strikes Back, out of the swamp. And the first thing that his student does, Luke Skywalker, he runs over, he says, "Master, I can't believe it. How did you do it? I just can't believe it." And then Yoda looks at him, he says, "And that is why you fail. Because if you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right."
Yeah. Is there a limit to this awakening to that we are in a simulation and now saying what we believe we can achieve? Is there a limit to this? Do you think there's a limit to it? What have you know limit?
No.
Wow.
The only limits are the ones you believe.
Hmm.
But
Okay.
I'm not saying that you could all of a sudden jump off the building and fly.
Yeah.
Okay. Because remember, it's like all these people that practice manifestation, they're like, "I tried manifestation, it didn't work." Well, if you really went inside their brains, they would be like having a ton of doubt
Hmm.
in the back of their mind.
Yeah.
So it really is not an easy thing to do.
Hmm.
They might, if they have any doubt, whatever emotion is stronger is what will win.
Yeah.
The way the universe works is that it's not going to manifest your weak thinking in your conscious mind when your stronger thinking is the fear that you might just fall and hit the ground.